This is Senate Bill 754, and in the summary column on the summation of the legislation, it just simply says, for legislation to safeguard the health care decisions of young adults. All right, the hearing on this bill is at 1 o'clock this afternoon, and what we have found out about it is what it would do generally would lower the age from 18 to 16 at which a child could have an abortion in Massachusetts without parental consent. Current law requires that both parents or the legal guardian consent before a 16-year-old has an abortion. This law changes a lot of that. And according to the Massachusetts Citizens for Life, they have a statement here, and I'll read it to you. It's very brief. We have defeated this bill in every session for many years, and it has been unpopular with the public all this time. The current bill adds the wrinkle of allowing, quote, emergency abortions without parental consent at any age if a girl's life is threatened and can only be saved by an abortion, a circumstance that doesn't happen. Now, the Massachusetts Citizens for Life is planning to testify against this legislation at 1 o'clock this afternoon. Also testifying against the legislation is the Massachusetts Family Institute. Policy analyst Christopher Lloyd will be on Beacon Hill testifying against this bill. Joining us live on the line from MFI right now is Michael King. He's the Director of Community Alliances. And Michael, thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Barry. It's great to be with you.
So another assault on families in Massachusetts and the ability of a family really to make decisions about what's best for their family. The nanny state wants to take those decisions away from the parents, it seems.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think this is just a one bill that is represents many bills at the State House that really are an attack on parental consent. I mean, this has just been such a main theme in so many of the bills that are coming our way. And, you know, this particular one, as you mentioned, SB754, to reduce the age from 18 to 16, you know, the idea that before engaging in a number of activities, including but not limited to, you know, getting a tattoo, piercing, drinking a beer at home, or receiving non-prescription medication at school for a headache, for example, minors must receive the consent of their parents. So why are we requiring, you know, consent from parents on these things, but when it comes to an actual pregnancy and a life, we want to make that all the way down to 16. And then, you know, this bill was HB 2070 back in 2015, and they wanted to actually say for girls 15 and under that they could get consent from any relative, basically siblings, uncles, aunts, cousins, spouses, or adopted children of any of these relatives. Consent could also be given by a physician, physician assistant, nurses, practical nurses, psychologists, social workers, your guidance counselor at school, for example. Now, that's not part of this particular bill, you know, but it's just crazy that we are trying to take parents, at least these bills are, trying to take parents completely out of the decision.
Right, and in terms of today's legislation, though, now this would, for kids 15 and under, allow them to obtain an abortion with the consent of only one parent, right? Current law requires both parents, but this would allow kids 15 and under to get an abortion with the consent of only one parent. Correct.
So, you know, if you're 16 or older, no parent is needed. If you're 15 and under, just one parent is needed. And you see the slippery slope here, right? Because 2 years ago, you know, they couldn't get this, anybody can consent. So now they're going to say, okay, well, let's at 15, let's make it one parent as opposed to two. And then, you know, the next 2 years, that there's going to be another bill that comes up saying, okay, now we want to take parents completely out of the picture and have consent by Uncle Joe, let's say, who has no relationship with this particular 15-year-old girl but can still give consent.
So you know how these things work. I mean, they throw things at the wall, and they just keep throwing it at the wall and throwing it at the wall, and eventually something sticks to the wall. This type of legislation is not new. This is something, as you've just pointed out, has been going on for a while now. They continue to try to throw this against the wall. Is there any momentum for any of this in the legislature? Do you sense that?
I mean, we're hopeful that this won't go anywhere, but that's not always the case, down at the State House. And all the more reason for people to be what we call a 2-minute activist and call your rep and call your senator. You can go on our website at mafamily.org, and you can use our tool there to look up your senator and your representative and just give them a 2-minute call and say, hey, I'm in your district. This SB754, that wants to lower the age of consent. I completely disagree with this. Because, we're down at the State House a lot, and something that we hear a lot, unfortunately, is that our reps and senators are just not hearing from people that have our values. And we need to be the 2-minute activist, especially for, these 16-year-old girls that, they're going to be facing peer pressure and whatever it is, and then, boyfriends maybe that don't want them to have the child, and this just creates a slippery slope for them. Just to say, well, now that the legislator says it's okay, I'm just going to go down to the clinic and have this done.
So a 16-year-old then would conceivably be able to walk into Planned Parenthood or wherever, whatever place performs abortions, and just say, I want to have this procedure? Would there have to be any kind of judicial involvement, or can they just walk right in and do this?
They can, just walk right in, and just like an 18-year-old can.
Wow, this is incredible. The problem, you bring up the legislature, and the frustrating part, and I hear this day after day after day, week after week, the fact is that the overwhelming majority of our legislators run unopposed all the time.
Right.
And so the same people are getting in. So it seems almost futile at times to talk to these people and tell them what you're for and what you're against, because they can simply dismiss it. They have nobody to challenge them, and nothing really to fear out there.
Yeah, no, it's an unfortunate point, and we encourage people all the time to run for office. There's a great organization called Renew MA Coalition that's their whole mission, is to identify people that will run for office and help them with fundraising and help them get the signatures that they need initially to get on the ballot. So, there's definitely opportunities for people to do that, and we encourage people to do that all the time.
So
sure.
Now you and I met back a while back when you came and you addressed our rally during the swamp rally down here in New Bedford a few months back, and you were telling us that day that, there just seems to be a whole myriad of ways that family values are at risk here in Massachusetts right now. What else is going on?
Yeah, well, like I said, this whole thing of parental consent is under attack in so many different bills. Look at, people might know the counseling ban that has been okayed in New Jersey and California, and now is a bill here in Massachusetts, which would basically make any kind of counseling away from an LGBTQ lifestyle for a minor. So a minor would be 17 and under. So if that minor wants to be counseled away from that lifestyle, or the therapist wants to counsel them away from that lifestyle, that would be considered child abuse under the law. Now, you would be prosecuted as a child abuser for what's called conversion therapy. And the other side wants you to think that that's electric shock therapy and all this nonsense, but it is absolutely not. So for giving, for having the religious freedom, right, or the freedom of speech for a 17-year-old or for that therapist, it's crazy to think that they would be considered child abusers under this law. And like I said, this is law in New Jersey and California. So we are, obviously fighting this one as well. There's another law that's put forth by a lady named Diane Splitz, House Bill 2883. She was concerned because she lives out on the Cape, and her son, without her consent, was sent to a gay-straight alliance group at school, and behind her back, he was sent to this. He was provided with anti-Christian and sexually provocative materials and encouraged to engage in behaviors that are physically and psychologically harmful. He had been seeing a counselor for negative childhood experiences that led to anxiety, depression, drug and alcohol abuse, eating disorders, sexual identity issues, but they told him but he quit this counseling at their encouragement. The bill also goes on to say that kids should not be given certain surveys in schools without parental consent. And, if you look at some of these surveys, it'll blow your mind on what they're asking 11-year-olds. I mean, I'll give you just a quick example here. One of the questions here is to kids in 7th grade through 12th grade. And this was given at the Andover High School on February 29th, 2016. Let's see. How old were you when you had consensual sex that you wanted to have for the first time? And then it goes on to explain different kinds of sex. Now, this is to 11-year-olds.
And who's collecting this information?
In our middle school and school systems.
Who's collecting this information,
on the
Michael?
same survey? What do you feel is your gender? What do you feel is now? Is that not a leading question?
Yeah.
What do you feel is your gender? Boy, man, girl, woman, or other? I mean, this is insanity that our kids have to be exposed to this, and many times without parental consent. When they're given these surveys.
Who is collecting this information? What are they using it for?
Well, I'm
is
sure
it the
it's
district
an agenda
itself?
from the LGBTQ agenda that is in our school systems. I mean, look at the gender-bread person that's taught as low as preschool, right? That teaches that your gender identity comes from your brain and has zero to do with your anatomy. In preschool, it's called the purple unicorn. I was just talking to a 7th grade girl in the Lincoln Public School system, and she said that she had been taught this gender-bread person recently in her class. It teaches gender on a spectrum, right? So you may say, well, I'm definitely male, but how masculine do I feel? Or how feminine do I feel? Did my voice change late after puberty? And thus, or do I walk a certain way? Do I talk a certain way? They want to get you on the spectrum so that now you'll start questioning your gender when you never did before. So this agenda is pervasive in our school system. And, if people want to identify a certain way, that is your choice. But don't push it on our children in the public school system, and don't create laws at our State House that have to do with these particular identifications.
This is mind-blowing. I hadn't even heard about this survey. So this is happening in public schools in Massachusetts now?
Absolutely. Yep. I mean, this one was dated February 29, 2016. I mean, if you look at, we put out a Engage the Bay State curriculum where we expose a lot of this stuff. I mean, there was, where was this one done? This was a grade 9 wellness project in Massachusetts. The project was accessing health information is essential for maintaining personal health and is a lifelong skill. Where do we go for the most accurate information? So the challenge to the students, 9th grade, okay? Students will be given one of several different scenarios about accessing health information. Their task is to research the information, answer the specific questions about their topic, and cite credible sources. So here's the group question. Your friend Sally confides in you that she is considering becoming sexually active with her boyfriend, but is worried about the risk of becoming pregnant. Sally would like to use the birth control pill, but does not want her parents to find out. Your challenge is to help Sally research the information necessary to answer the questions below and create a PowerPoint presentation to explain your answers to the class.
Wow.
Are you kidding me?
Oh, my God.
How leading is that?
And this is 9th grade?
This was in the Westboro High School grade 9 wellness class.
So this is obviously being sanctioned by local school committees.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, 93% of high schools had a gay-straight alliance or similar club, according to a survey that was taken, I think, back in 2007. So that's increased.
Where the hell is the DESE on all of this?
I mean, it's all being pushed. I mean, look at the laws that are at our State House. I mean, this counseling ban, for example. I mean, the fact that you could be prosecuted as a child abuser for giving a biblical or a Christian, what would be known as a Christian definition of gender out of Genesis 1:27, and you'll be prosecuted as a child abuser for that. I mean, that's insane. I mean, we're not. Christians aren't saying, you can't counsel towards an LGBTQ lifestyle. If you want to counsel towards that lifestyle, go ahead. but don't force someone. Don't force a 17-year-old who wants to be counseled out of that lifestyle that he or she has no choice in the matter. I mean, that's insanity and a direct violation of religious liberty and freedom of speech for that 17-year-old. And statistics show that 75 to 90% of kids that are 19 or older come out of an LGBTQ lifestyle into a heterosexual lifestyle. So what they're saying is, we don't want to give you the opportunity, 17-year-old, to come out of that lifestyle. We will threaten you with child abuse to yourself if you come out of that, because we don't want you, when you become 19, to go into a heterosexual lifestyle. I mean, it's insanity, and it's very militant. To be honest,
and this is pending legislation, right?
Pending legislation that will probably come up for a vote this fall.
Wow.
Yep.
Michael King, you are the Director of Community Alliances for the Massachusetts Family Institute. Where can people go and learn more about this stuff?
Yeah, well, please, come to our website, mafamily.org. Again, mafamily.org. There's a legislation tab there, and you can just click on that, and we've written up briefs that really kind of summarize these bills, make it easy for you to understand. You can go on there and find your representative and your senator, and be a 2-minute activist. Go on our website too. There's this book that I've been reading out of a little bit here called "Engage the Bay State." It's a tool like none other that exposes the curriculum in our public schools that we're concerned about, as well as these pieces of legislation that we're concerned about. And people can find that at mafamily.org/engage. So please check that out. We put this out, this Engage the Bay State. It's a curriculum that we put out for people to teach, in a community group, a church, a parish. We've just had a fantastic response to it. People read the book, and they're just having the reaction you've had, Barry, in this interview, where you just cannot believe what's being taught to our kids, especially in our public schools, and some of the bills that are, being looked at with our legislators.
Unbelievable. And you gave some information earlier too about how people can get involved in the system and how can they learn about running for office and all of that. Where can they go to find out more about that?
Yeah, so that's an organization called Renew MA Coalition. Renew MA Coalition. They have all kinds of resources. Again, can help you out with fundraising, getting signatures. They are very well connected in the state of Massachusetts, so you are not alone. If you want to run for office, there's many seats that are, very winnable. And like you said, it's just people aren't running. But the resources are there to help you. We just need willing people to fill those seats for sure.
All right, Michael King, appreciate your time. We're going to have to do this again real soon. Stay in touch.
All right, Barry. Thanks so much.
All right, thank you.